Protests in Iran and around the globe after the death of a 22-year-old woman accused of violating the country's conservative dress code. We have local reaction.
And now to Paris and the worldwide uproar, including here in Chicago, over a death in Iran. Paris.
Brandis, protests took place this weekend in Chicago, but have especially erupted in Iran after the death of a 22-year-old woman at the hands of what is known as the morality police. The woman was arrested while visiting family for not wearing a hijab, traditional headscarf. Her death has caused an outcry around the world denouncing Iran for violations of women's rights. And joining us to break down the unrest in Iran are Jacqueline Saper, an Iranian-American writer, activist, and author of From Miniskirt to Hijab; Ali Tarok, a former political prisoner turned activist; and Matteo Mohammed Farzaneh, associate professor of history at Northeastern Illinois University and author of Iranian Women and Gender in the Iran-Iraq War. Welcome all of you to Chicago Tonight. Jacqueline Saper, let's start with the basics. Remind us who the morality police in Iran are.
Yes, good evening. The morality police have been roaming the streets of the cities of Iran and the neighborhoods, enforcing the decree of forced and mandatory hijab. They have instilled fear in the women. I myself had an encounter with morality police. I was walking, minding my own business. I was in a public park, no threat to anyone, and I was stopped by the morality police. I was called a bloody whore and for causing social corruption on the streets of the city, and given a lecture on modesty. And I saw the patrol van, and I did not want to be taken by the police, so I apologized profusely, and I said I will definitely be careful and wear the hijab properly, and I was let go with a warning. But obviously, Mahsa Amini was not that fortunate.
And so the brutal tactics here in your account and in the account here, because the allegations are that she died at the hands of the morality police. Officially, Iranian officials have said that she died of a heart attack, which most Iranians are very skeptical of that. Matteo Farzaneh, there have been violations of women's rights, of human rights in Iran before. Why do you think this has resonated?
Well, this has simply resonated because of the sheer violence, and probably technology has a lot to do with it. Everybody's got a cell phone and they're recording all of this because the state media does not allow for the recording or the reporting of any of these atrocities that are launched against women. So I think technology both, and you have a new generation of Iranian women that I write about all the time, that these people are not like the previous generations. They're quite emboldened, they're very brave, although we've had brave women before, but they totally operate under different circumstances right now.
And Ali Tarok, you organized a rally here in Chicago. There have been rallies around the world. Do these things resonate? Do they help the cause in Iran?
First, thank you for having me here, and I want to send my condolences to Amini's family in Iran and Kurdistan and all Iranian people. Of course, we are not in the battle in Iran. We cannot fight over there for our freedom and democracy, but we need to show our support. All Iranians, not only Iranians, every single human being in this world who is seeking freedom, human rights, needs to support that that protest in Iran. So this is the smallest things we can do here in Chicago, United States.
Jacqueline Saper, the government ostensibly has also backed some pro-government rallies in Iran. Are those grassroots at all, or are those all basically put on by the government?
By the government. I assure you they're put on by the government. The majority of the people don't want this regime. I was on Chicago Tonight when Qasem Soleimani was assassinated. And I was told thousands of millions of people were in the street. And I said that even if 8 million go in the street, there's only 10% of the population. And not only these protests have been so widespread, the certain cities like Kerman, where Qasem Soleimani's home birth city is, they are protesting. The holy city of Qom, they're protesting. That's the cradle of the revolution. That's the cradle of the regime. So you can see how widespread this is and the discontent of the people. And in these protests, everyone, young and old, rich and poor, urban and rural, of different ethnicities and beliefs. This is a very widespread protest that is very different to prior years.
Matteo Farzani, and you say this is different than prior years. There was a 2009 Green Revolution. Is there a diplomatic role here for the U.S. that can help in any way, or should this just sort of remain grassroots to Iran?
Well, to answer your question directly, and then I want to add something to that I just said previously. I think this should remain grassroots. I don't think anybody can have any positive role in it simply because then the protesters will be given the label that they're working operatives for the enemy of the state, quote unquote. So it's important that it remains as a grassroots movement. The thing that I wanted to add was, you asked about why these women are behaving the way they are. Why is the government launching the kind of violence that they're doing now? The population, in the entire population, I was just in Iran for 2 months over the summer. The economic situation, lack of prosperity, lack of hope for the great majority of Iranians, not just for women and not for young women, is for everybody across the board. It's so bad that people have basically, in layman's term, have nothing to lose. In essence, it's a point of frustration. And that's when we can talk about the American hand in the worsening of the situation for the Iranians because of the sanctions that President Trump basically snapped back on. The situation has gotten much, much worse than it was before. I travel regularly, and it's never been as bad as what I saw this past summer.
You're talking about sanctions after former President Trump pulled out of the Iranian nuclear deal, which is still being negotiated. So that's part of the whole diplomatic picture here. Ali Tarok, Iran officials, they got rid of internet for the population. Are you hearing anything on the ground in Iran?
Before I answer this question, I want to go back to your question to Jacqueline. The battle is about who takes over the streets. So for many years, we are used to that regime take over the streets and dispatch the forces to show, hey, I have enough support. Okay, I'm legitimate. Okay, at least send good positive energy to its supporters. However, this time is different. Okay, people are in the middle of the battle. Okay, they are telling everybody whose streets are streets. So we are fighting to take our streets back because over there is our house, our country, our cities. So Mahsa Amini could be my sister. Mahsa Amini could be my mother. Mahsa Amini death could be could happen to all of us. So then go back to your question to me about the internet. Yeah, it's kind of scary because the regime shut down the internet. There is intranet. They have access to internal website. I haven't heard anything back from my friends. Just yesterday, I called them over the phone, not WhatsApp or other social media. Hey, are you okay? Are you still alive? So one of the things we can support Iranians this time when the regime shut down the internet, we in freedom, in the free countries, we can help people inside Iran to connect to the global internet.
And I know there are efforts to try and do that. We have to leave it there for now. Our thanks to Jacqueline Saper, Ali Tarok, and Matteo Mohammed Farzaneh. Thank you so much.
Thank you.